If someone asked you to name some of the most valuable things in existence, what would you answer? Most people will probably say something along the lines of large sums of money, bars of gold, and even land in expensive cities like New York or San Francisco. Something most people probably wouldn't mention is Pokemon cards. I'm being completely serious. Over the past few years, especially over the past 1 year, the values of some Pokemon cards has exploded. Some now even exceed that of the price of gold bars. Most people realize that the values of things, at least to some extent, is determined by the desire of people for them. However, through the rise of the internet, the amount of exposure that items like Pokemon cards are able to receive has increased tremendously. Like most people my age, I consume a lot of content on the internet. Because of this, I was quick to notice a spike in the number of YouTube videos and other social media content revolving around the Pokemon brand. I noticed people whom I had never heard of before getting millions of views on their videos and hundreds of thousands of people on their live streams, on which they opened and unboxed old boxes of Pokemon cards. Now, I realize that Pokemon has been extremely popular for 2 decades all across the globe, but this spike in interest was very surprising to me nevertheless. Because of this, I decided to search for the term Pokemon cards, leading me to the website StockX, an online marketplace on which people can sell their expensive used shoes, handbags, and even Pokemon cards. On this website, people were selling Pokemon cards from the past 20 years. But one that specifically caught my eye was a Charizard card, selling for over $90,000 US. This was so surprising to me, because at the same time, a 1 kilo bar of gold, an object I had always seen as one of the most expensive in the world, was selling for just around $60,000 US, less than a piece of cardboard. And that Charizard card I was just talking about was selling for just $3,768 just a month before. So in just under a month, the value that people perceive this card to have expanded tremendously. And on StockX, nearly every single Pokemon card that I saw increased in value to a similar extent in this time period. And from October 9th to October 10th, the number of searches on Google for the term Pokemon cards nearly tripled. But what happened? Well, on October 9th, a day before the spike, famous YouTuber Logan Paul live streamed himself opening a box of Pokemon cards he had bought for $200,000 US. On the stream, he sold these cards individually for a total of over $500,000, and hundreds of thousands of people watched him do this. Another 10 million people watched this happen over the following 2 weeks. But there are other factors leading to the Pokemon price card surge. Many of the people who grew up with the Pokemon brand now have strong feelings of nostalgia attached to it. Many of them now have disposable incomes, and websites like StockX allow them easy access to purchasing these cards. Additionally, boredom caused by COVID-19 stay-at-home orders has allowed many people the time to do so. Eventually, over time, a lot of people began to realize that Pokemon cards were increasing in price so rapidly, and people were beginning to buy the cards in the hopes that they would be worth more in the future. This directly parallels a period between 1636 and 1637, known as the Dutch Tulip Mania. During this time period, the contract prices for tulip bulbs reached extraordinarily high levels, just before collapsing in February of 1637. At their peak, people were spending over a year's worth of their salaries on the bulbs, hoping that they would be worth more in the future and that they could make a lot of money. Unfortunately for most people, this point never came. Similarly, both the price of Pokemon cards and the stock price of many startup companies is directly correlated with the belief they will be worth more in the future. A great example of this is Tesla, a company that at one point was worth more than the other 9 top 10 auto manufacturers combined, while making up less than 1% of the market's yearly revenue. This is important to understand when analyzing the apparent value of things, because they're often not actually worth these large sums of money. People just want to own them before they possibly reach these peaks in the future. A more recent display of this is the rapid increase in stock price of the company GameStop, which expanded from $17 to $347 in less than 20 days, making GameStop a company worth $25 billion, at least on paper. Now, unfortunately for the company, this was not the result of good revenue numbers. Instead, this was caused by an online movement of investors trying to send a message to Wall Street. These independent retail investors, people who invest their own individual money, gathered on the forum website Reddit, specifically the Wall Street Bets subreddit, which has over 9 million members. Some influential members on this forum found out that GameStop, a company many of them had fond memories of from growing up, was being shorted by large Wall Street firms like Melvin and Citron Capital. This means that these companies were actively betting against GameStop's success, specifically because of the decline in retail, initially accelerated by Amazon, but more recently by COVID-19. When a company is excessively shorted, it can lead it to going out of business because large investors are hoping that it will fail. Now, the investors of Reddit decided that this type of predatory behavior by large Wall Street companies had to be stopped. In order to do so, millions of them bought shares of GameStop in order to keep the share price as high as possible for as long as possible. GameStop's story has many parallels to the Pokemon card price increase. They both received major media attention. They both had a large online movement supporting them, and they were both led by young people that had a desire to begin investing. Unfortunately for both, they also had a sharp decline in value just a short period after their rise. The Pokemon card I was talking about earlier, for example, is now selling for just around $13,000 US. And GameStop's stock dropped from $347 down to $200 in less than a day. These numbers clearly signify the volatility of the values of these types of objects, but also the power of the internet when it comes to introducing them to millions of people. This type of impact, 10 or even 20 years ago, was nearly impossible to be had by regular people who don't work for large Wall Street firms. However, through the rise of the internet in the last decade and a half, social media has evolved from being just a normal interaction every single day to being many people's main source of information and even social interactions. Using social platforms like Reddit allows people to form groups in which they can share ideas, concerns, but unfortunately sometimes even lies. It allows them to come together and start change that they would otherwise not be able to accomplish on their own. This includes creating values for items that are otherwise seen as worthless. Now, this type of market impact by the internet on the economy has only recently been felt by Wall Street. But this trend is likely to continue and become even more prevalent in the future. Regular people can now be hurt by the market, but also benefit from it. And the speed at which perceived value is created and destroyed has been massively amplified. The effect that the desire of masses has on an item has always been there. However, social media platforms and the internet as a whole has allowed the exposure for these types of items to increase massively. This has led to a seemingly endless stream of items that gain value really quickly but lose it just as fast as the interest of these types of investors shifts to something else. Thank you.